campus of Xavier University. WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Rapper Megan Thee Stallion is opening her own chicken shack in Houston after her Popeyes partnership. She toured the site recently, hinting at a fun vibe with speakers and possibly a dance floor. The U.S. maternal mortality rate has risen to 19 deaths per 100,000 births, up slightly from last year. Leading causes include bleeding, blockages, and infections. Black women still face much higher death rates than white women. Interest in joining the New York Police Department is up 45% after the department lowered college credit requirements in February. Black Mayor Eric Adams says the force is now on track to hit 35,000 officers by fall 2026. And a new Florida amendment process proposes 3 Black History museums instead of 1, located in St. Johns County, Eatonville, and Opelika. Black Rep. Bruce Antone's plan would involve the state in their development and operations. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's now time for Let's Elevate, the Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Filko and Cary Grant.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Let's Elevate Show. This is Cary Grant tonight. Arnie Felko's out doing community work, and he'll be back tomorrow. But we have some great subject matter today and some great subject matter experts. We have 2 professors from Xavier University, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We're going to talk about mental health tonight and some of the issues with mental health and caregiving in mental health. We talk about self-care on the show a lot, so this should be a very interesting subject matter. I'll begin with you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Stephanie Grant. I'm an assistant professor of psychology at Xavier. I was trained as a school psychologist at Louisiana State University, and I have formerly worked as the assistant director for support and evaluation services for Orleans Parish Schools, now NOLA Public Schools. So I've been in the field, a while now, like
Long
12
enough.
or 13 years, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man. So I am Brian Turner. I am a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, a graduate of Isidore Newman, graduate of Southern, graduate of Jackson State. I currently serve as the department head of psychology here at Xavier University. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist. I also serve as the policy director for New Orleans Youth Alliance here in New Orleans as well. And I just try to be a good citizen of the city. So, yeah, glad to be here, Brother Grant.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Turner. Just kind of give an overview of what you want to talk about tonight about mental health issues and the like. I know it's a broad subject, but 4 or 5 areas that we can really kind of hit tonight.
So what I would love to talk about, and it's great to be back at WBOK. Shout out to Troy Henry, Cleveland Spears,
yes.
Jeff Wendell Pierce and Jeff Thomas, the owners, and once again, glad to have y'all in Xavier. And this is our building as well. The psych department. We're right upstairs on the 5th floor, yes. So this is a very short commute. Very short commute.
Very convenient.
So what I would like to talk about, one, is actually the need for more specifically African Americans, persons of color, and persons who are culturally sensitive to come into the field of mental health, right. and understanding the needs of a very diverse group of like clientele and what clients need.
Right.
Secondly, I would love to talk about dispelling some of the myths around mental health and how oftentimes the very thing that hinders people from getting help is untruths.
Yeah.
And then last, let's talk about some fun. Like, what can people do to make sure they're well? You know, in today's society with the tariffs and and some of these other things going on, we need to take care of ourselves. So I would love to make sure we give some people some things that they can do.
Yeah, what we talk about on this show is the very thing you just mentioned last. We talk a lot about politics, local, state, and federal, and the pressures on people, the stress that we hear in the callers and in ourselves is incredible. So we always want to talk about self-care and, like you said, anything people can do to help themselves. Mm-hmm. Dr. Grant?
Yeah, so few things that I was interested in touching on in addition to what Dr. Turner shared was sort of realistically understanding the landscape of mental health supports and needs in New Orleans. So I have a little bit of data on that. And just sometimes I find the most important thing to do with folks is say, you're right. The way you're feeling is real and you're right. And if you're feeling like there's an increase in this stress and anxiety, there's data about that. the World Health Organization suggested that during the pandemic and continuing with all the unrest and all,
Right.
we've seen a 25% increase in mental health disorder diagnoses. This is worldwide, but
Yeah.
we certainly see that reflected in our own community here in the States and here in Louisiana. So I think it's important to, whenever we can, when speaking to the public, share that if you're feeling worse, you might be right. And it's okay to acknowledge that and say, maybe I need help. So
Yeah.
I'd also love to touch on, along with Dr. Turner, maybe some specifics of, here are some things, some indicators within yourself of when is it time to seek help,
Right.
right?
Right.
And what we're looking at with that.
Yeah, I think the idea of what you said, sometimes it sounds like it's because people are paying more attention to it, which is good. But I think that people always get stuck on their physical health and don't realize sometimes their mental health is causing them problems with their physical health.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying about the stats are correct, but I think it's also people are just being more aware of what's going on.
One other little caveat, which is also interesting. So I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and Dr. Grant is actually a school psychologist.
Okay.
So one of the things that we also try to make sure our students that we work with understand is that psychology is very broad. Most people think of Sigmund Freud or a little short white guy with a sofa, and that's what psychology is about. But it's so broad. I mean, we have medical psychologists who are psychologists that are trained to actually prescribe psychotropic medication. So in spaces where psychiatrists aren't there or psychiatric nurse practitioners aren't there, we now have opportunities where psychologists can get trained to prescribe medication, right? Yeah. We have school psychologists who do work within our school systems and look at the impact of educational systems and then learning disabilities and disorders and things like that, and how we need to shape and form and create spaces where we meet the needs of all of our young people and through life, right? Not just in K through 12, but as we're lifelong learners. We have research psychologists. We have health psychologists. So we also want to make sure that people get an understanding that the field of psychology is not just you per se working in this little office, but that we've had psychologists who've gone on to be elected officials, university presidents. They go into military service. They go into law enforcement. So psychology is such a broad field, which in actuality, psychology is one of the, if not like the number one major in the country oftentimes, because it's so broad. Yeah. It leads into so many other fields that is so attractive. So we also want to remind students that psychology can take you a lot of different places.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important point that we're talking about right now, that we need to grow this field. This is definitely one of those things. We talk about medical doctors and even dentists and vets, but I mean, we need to take care of our mental health no matter what the times are or whatever. And it's obvious there's a huge need for this as well. So I think that one thing that would be interesting to the listening audience, and particularly, I mean, we know majority of our listening audience is the African American community. It's just the idea of, first off, start with the kind of the school side of it, and then talk about the idea of going. I know this is true. Going to somebody who is like you. You'll go to somebody like you. I find that people go to doctors that are like them, dentists that are like them, whatever, and people seek that out. And I think that maybe part of the mental health issue in our community is not having access to people who look like us.
So the research is actually really clear on this. So there's a lot of different, this is real nitpicky in the field stuff. There are different approaches or theoretical orientations to psychology. Yeah. The general person seeking therapy, that doesn't matter as much. But what's interesting about the research is that the number one predictor of success in therapy is the connection between the therapist, whatever their different licensure levels and things, but between the provider and the client. So when people rate higher connectedness with their therapist, they are far more likely to have positive outcomes in therapy. And you're absolutely right. There's definitely research on, the cultural competence is what we call it, right? And connection to someone who they can see themselves in. And there are a lot of different identities. I do some work around this, but there are a lot of different identities. So race is just one. Gender, sexual orientation, there's a ton of different identities. And so when people can feel aligned with their provider or feel seen by their provider. So yes, we need more of us, trust me, in the field. It is way too few percentage-wise. But I think it's important to understand that as long as you're working with someone who you feel seen by,
Yeah.
that you can have positive outcomes as well. In regards to you referenced the school district.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is so important to share is it's important for people to understand that they have rights to access to care in schools in terms of not so much therapy per se, but access to special education services.
Yes.
So you mentioned, I know in a previous show, Dr. Philco was on who talked
Yes.
a lot about autism.
Autism, right.
And so those students are entitled to services in the public
Right.
schools, and they're entitled to evaluations. And so as a school psychologist, we do lots of stuff, including mental health intervention. But one of the things we do is evaluations for special education. So I always encourage families to advocate for their child. If you feel that your
Right.
child is not needs some support, right? Either academically, behaviorally, or emotionally, they can get that in schools. There are school social workers. Actually, general public probably wouldn't know this, but the last administration, Congress passed like a $500 million bill for school-based mental health. So school psychologists, school social workers, training programs, all sorts of things. And so there's actually some access, not sure exactly where it is right now in the world, but there's full rides to grad school for school psych and school social work right now. So I think that's important to know if folks are interested in the field.
Sure. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. The other thing, and you touched upon it, but the resources in this city are as you said, they're vast, different types of resources. But generally, what I find is people don't know about it. I mean, how do people find out about something that may be bothering them? Not because what you said is very true. I think a lot of people think that dealing with some of these things, you have to go to the Sigmund Freud office and lay on the couch. It's kind of the stereotype of it.
Yeah.
But you're saying there's lots of other areas.
So if we play with some of the myths, right, and once again, especially within the Black and brown community, and honestly, poor white communities too, right, is that historically psychology was not a service affordable, right? So the ideal was that you go see your pastor, you go see your priest, you see your spiritual leader, or you go to the barber shop, you go to the salon, or you just talk to Big Mama. You know, you talk to somebody who just can help you kind of understand life. And so we also think about the fact that I had a student ask me this some years ago, my mentee. He said, Dr. Turner, I don't know how to understand this, but people always want us to understand about George Washington, but they don't know about George Washington Carver.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And what he was hitting me with was the realization that oftentimes as African Americans, we know so much about other people, we don't know about ourselves.
Right.
And then because it was a mental health issue, we were talking about how we don't always talk about the pioneers of psychology that are African American, that are Latina, that are, gay, straight, that are, women, right? And we begin to have this conversation around the fact that is where it starts. To know that there are people within an industry or field that have a unique understanding of your lived experiences, and you may not always see that person as the professional, but oftentimes that person can vouch for the field, that this is a valid thing that you should involve yourself in. So one of the things I always think about, and for me, I came back home in 2013 to Xavier, but I had always kind of thought, like, could I ever get back home to do this thing?
Yeah.
Right. I lived in Mississippi, I lived in Ohio, and I lived in Florida. And I always like, will I ever get back home? Because my thought was that I felt like my service and my ministry of what I do, I wanted to be helpful, because growing up in New Orleans, I saw all these things, right? I saw in New Orleans East in my neighborhood, then I got uptown and I saw very vastly different lived experiences, but very real similarities in terms of how people experience the world.
Yeah.
And so the myth part, I think, is where we start oftentimes to help people understand that you're not going to necessarily get locked up for having a need, right? Yeah. The numbers are roughly about 98% of people who have any type of psychological disorder or issues walk around every day. You don't know it. They go see their clinician, they see their therapist, they take their meds, they go about life.
Right.
Could be me, could be you, right? Could be the person you're married to, right?
Right. You may not even know.
You may not even know, right?
Yeah.
But the 2 to 4% of people who have significant mental illness that require hospitalization, significant medication, those persons are getting the help that they need, and we don't ever know.
Yeah.
And so we're so afraid, like with so many other things, that it's going to get me, right? And so what we first want to do is help people understand that, like we all go through these periods of times of being blue or being down or being stressed, right? Or being a little anxious. And sometimes we need help.
Yeah.
We say this all the time. If you break your leg, where you going to go see?
Right.
The
You're gonna see
doctor.
the doctor,
If
right.
you break your arm, where are you going to see? The doctor.
Right.
If you have cancer, you're going to see the doctor. So when there's something wrong with the way you think about something, the way you feel like something, you should go see the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so we start there because I think that would help people understand that it's not. I didn't get a magic pouch when I graduated. I didn't get a magic wand. This is science, right?
Sure.
And this is a skill set that we've built so that we can treat people who have these issues. And so oftentimes, if we start right there and help people understand that they have access to it. Now, of course, resources, because resources are often a function of political and social kind of pressures, right?
Right.
We find that a lot of energy is given to efforts around mental health when something bad has happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a good and there's a double-edged sword with there, right? It means there's a lot of resources, but people start thinking, well, dang, I don't have it that bad, so I'm not going to get that, right? So one of the things I also like to talk to people about is just like being a good consumer of mental health, right? One of the first things I say is talk to the people around you. Say, hey, have you ever seen somebody for being depressed or down?
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, somebody you know has probably seen a clinician and can say, yeah, man, look, I go see Dr. Grant. She cool, man. I mean, you need
works.
somebody. I
Yeah.
get a number. It worked, bro. She
Right.
keep me straight, right?
Right.
Or they'll say, man, look, I went and saw Dr. Turner a couple years ago. Ever since then, I've been able to handle, what I need to deal with. And if I need to, I'll go call him in and he'll take me in, So we want to actually do the normal thing. Talk to the people you care about. Talk to people that care about you and say, hey, I might need some help with this. Do you know someone? Can you make a contact?
And as you said earlier, and it coincides with what you're talking about now, the stigmas that go along with this are really the problem. Like you said, sometimes it may just be you're just feeling down because you're under a lot of pressure. Or whatever. It may not be that this is some long-term problem.
No.
And don't ever be afraid that you're going to be institutionalized because you ask some questions.
And I know Stephanie's about to say something, but I say this is my joke about this, is that it is so much more empowering for an individual to decide that they want to check themselves into a hospital to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Just like if you feel any other pain, if you go to the hospital and say, hey, I'm not feeling good, I need some help, and I might need to be here a little while, they'll take you in.
Right.
The bad thing is when there's a crisis and we're not sure what's going on. That's scary for everybody. That's scary for your family. That's scary for your partner. That's scary for the provider because we don't know what's going on. But if you come and say, hey, man, look, recently my mom passed away and I just haven't been able to kind of stop crying and, I'm not really focusing at work and I'm not able to take care of my kids. Well, now you've given us a specific point of something we can talk about, and then we can start to think about what we can do. So definitely, like, going from dispelling the myths to helping people be good consumers of mental health is always what I like to do. I don't know, Dr. Grant, what you about to say?
Yeah.
Well, what I have to say is kind of simple, and it's something that I talk about all the time with my students, because as much as we are, experts and researchers and professors where we teach, half the battle is also their lived experience when they come in and talk with you.
Right.
But what I tell them and what I would like, the main message I want to share is you deserve to feel better. Mental health pain is real pain, and it's very distressing, and it can be debilitating. When we think, and we can talk in a bit about when to know to get help, but you deserve to feel better. If you are feeling bad mentally, psychologically, you deserve to feel better.
Yeah, we're going to take a short break. This is a very good, interesting conversation. We'll be right back in a moment.
New Orleans, are you ready? A fresh voice in the city is here, bringing you the beats, the culture, and the stories that matter. From local music and food to real talk on what's happening in the streets. We've got you covered. Stay tapped in. Follow us on all platforms at WBLK 1230 for the latest updates and exclusive content. Your city, your culture, your news. Don't just hear about it, be about it. Follow WBLK 1230 now.
On last week's From the Press Box to Press Row with Donald Ware.
Jason Jordan.
Look, man, I was an Eagles fan long before I lived in Philly. I was like, if I went to school in New York, I was never going to graduate. So I was like, perfect. I landed in Philly. I've been an Eagles fan for years at that point. Philly fans are crazy. That's just reality. You just got to accept that. Philly's a whole other level. And you know what? We don't care. We good with it. We know it. If you catch any one of us one-to-one, super good people, the best people, shirt off the back, help you out in any way possible. You catch us on game game day, everybody catching hands. Everybody getting talked about. Everybody's getting bad mouthed. It's rough. I know.
From the press box to press row is one of the hottest sports talk shows in the country. Join Donald each week as he takes you on a journey through the world of HBCU sports and pro sports and interviews with top sports and entertainment figures. That's from the press box to press row.
Box to Row, Saturdays at 2 p.m. on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com. What New Orleans is talking about.
WBOK online at WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
We are back. This is Cary Grant, and I have two professors from Xavier University, Dr. Turner and Dr. Grant, who are talking about mental health issues. If you want to call in, the number is 504-582-9422. This is a very interesting subject, a very touchy subject, so I know people are listening may not want to call in, but pay attention to what we're talking about. I want to talk to you because you're dealing with school students about a couple of things, the post-COVID era students in college and in high school, but also I want to talk to you about just the idea of young people have a lot more stresses these days than usual. We see all these suicide rates and all these things that are going on. And I know it's a very touchy time for them when you're in the household and you're hearing all this bad news from the government and from everything that's going on in the world. And that's very stressful for kids right now. I'm sure it's much worse than it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely seen sharp increases across the board, but definitely in youth as well.
Yeah.
There's a sense of almost existential crisis. So it's, there's always the issues of, do I fit in, identity, things like eating disorders. Those are have always been present, right? And as we're progressing through this particular period in history, it basically seems, the joke is, I would like to live in precedented times, please. I am tired of unprecedented times. The students actually tell us that, right?
Wow.
It's the idea that you can't seem to escape it. But I want to actually tie that because I think there are certain things exacerbating. Yes, climate change is scary. Yes, feeling like your government is unstable is very scary. And, feeling like the increased economic pressures, most people can't feel like they can't afford to have a family or a home.
Right.
And actually, this is not a topic for this day, but the birth rates are cratering right now in the U.S. We don't have replacement rate right now. Because replacement rate is each couple would have to have two children. And so, and that I think is a direct reflection of the overall overwhelming sense of instability. But I think what is amplifying this, and there's research to support this. So, some recent meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a review of lots and lots of research studies. Okay. So this one was 43 research studies. Shows that there are negative impacts of social media on mental health.
Yes.
So maybe things were always unstable. I think back to, maybe my father's generation who lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, in the 60s, or Vietnam, which was on television.
Civil rights.
Civil rights movement. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
But thinking about the fact that, yes, you saw it for an hour or two a day on the news.
And then it was over.
And then it was over, and you didn't live in it every moment. And so much of psychological treatment, which I know we don't have time to get into today in terms of the specifics of what therapy looks like. Oh, maybe that'll be helpful too, is talk people through what that first session might even feel like, to demystify it, right?
Yeah.
But this idea that part of what's going on with a lot of people and a lot of mental illness, particularly anxiety and depression, is repetition of a worry or a concern or a negative thought in their mind, and they can't get away from it. And so social media, I literally had a student tell me yesterday, I was able to quit all social media except TikTok. You want to know why?
Wow.
We talk about reinforcement. So I'm an expert in behavioral psychology. So this idea of reinforcement and punishment.
Yeah.
Every time you swipe, every 1 to 3 seconds, they've done the research. It's like a hit of dopamine. It's like doing a tiny amount of cocaine. Good. Yeah, it feels good. But then it doesn't. But then
You
basically, the social media algorithms have hacked our brains in that they are totally doing the same thing that slot machines do.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a variable ratio schedule. You never know when the next time you swipe, it's going to be something that makes you happy, like puppies,
Right.
or not something that makes you upset, but makes you upset, keeps you engaged. So say all that to
Because
say,
you got to find the next good thing.
you got to find the next good thing, so you keep
Mm-hmm.
swiping. So there's an addiction component to social media.
Yes.
That it's emerging research. It's so new, but there is data on this. And I'm fairly confident, and this is some emerging research, so I don't want to overspeak the data, but I think the reason we're seeing almost like worse outcomes right now with the youth in terms of mental health diagnosis is because every time they get on, even ones who might not have had a mental health disorder right now, sometimes, something like, half of people have something at some point in their life, 70% of people.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't escape it.
So I'm guessing, I'm just saying this, but I'm guessing that the whole being on lockdown, pushing everybody into dealing with the screens more was really worse from that point of view than it was from being on lockdown, because you got more into this whole dealing with that kind of device.
So the optimist in me, the eternal optimist in me, says that the human condition has always been in these positions, right? I kind of go back to the Men in Black, right? Remember the Men in Black, the first one to start killing a battleship that's threatening to destroy Earth, and what is Will Smith? And they say, well, as long as people on Earth don't know that the Achillean battleship is about to destroy Earth, they can go about their lives, right?
Right.
And so I oftentimes think about that's really how our mental health is. Is that as long as we have the resources available to take care of what we need to, we can manage that stress, that anxiety.
Yeah.
It's not until those resources are depleted. And I usually give an example, which is if your light bill is due, right? Today is Wednesday. Light bill is due Friday.
Yeah.
You have $50 today.
Right.
Right. The light bill is $100. What do you do?
Got it.
Right. What do you do? Who do you call? Right. What do you do?
How do you make that go away?
You call and ask for an extension. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Grant, you got an extension about 3 months ago. We only grant an extension every 6 months, so you can't get that. Well, now if you make a loan, you give up your 50, you owe somebody 50, and you got lights, but now do you have gas in your car? Do you have any food?
Sure.
A wife or girlfriend may want to go get something to eat, to go to the movies, right? So now you're at zero.
Yeah.
That's usually what mental health is like for people. They don't have resources.
Mm-hmm.
The flip of that, Friday's day after tomorrow, light bill comes $100. You got $200. What do?
Right.
You pay the light bill. You still got $100.
Yeah.
So now you can put gas in the car. You can eat. You can go on a date.
Everything's good.
You're good, right?
Yeah.
So what I say is that I don't want to completely have people thinking that these things happen, because the other part of it kind of, once again, I like to make movie references, right? But here's the idea. We know what to do if your house burns down.
Yeah.
Right? Insurance is called, fire department comes out, take care of you. Your neighbors come around, hug you, love you, make sure you get stuff. Well, if your block burns down, kind of the same thing. There's more people involved, but the city is still intact and we're still there and we kind of can take care of each other. But what happens when all of society is under attack?
Right.
That's where this level of anxiety and like distress really becomes unbearable, because my neighbors don't even have resources.
There's nowhere to turn to.
There's
nothing to turn to, because everybody's trying to
turn
to something.
Everybody's drowning.
So what I like to say, go back to one of your original points, is making sure people have the resources. Stephanie said we're not going to talk about care. Yes, we are. Because one of the first things I like to say is you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself every day.
Yeah.
You should do something every day to ensure that you are grounded, that you are on your wellness path, right? That you're not so overwhelmed. If it's just taking a walk around the block, sometimes for some people it is finding something on social media that you like. It might be, and I ask students all the time, show me who you're following, right?
Yeah.
So I tell parents with their kids, ask them to show you who they're following. If they're following people that are negative, that aren't positive, you got to nip that in the bud. And even for ourselves, I've had to make sure I do my social media purges. If I find friends or pages or topical pages that I find are no longer positive, I stop following them.
Yeah.
Because what we do is that whole old saying, what we put in is what we get out, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Same thing mental health-wise, right? And that goes back to the fact that one of the things that we definitely deal with a lot of times, what we call ACEs, right? Mm-hmm. ACEs, those early experiences in life that are negative.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are the experiences that oftentimes we carry with us, and over time, we no longer become aware of what they really mean to us, right? These are experiences that happen early in life.
Yeah.
And honestly, even from a linguistic standpoint, because oftentimes these things don't concretize in our mind and ourselves until we can speak them. These are things that happen because we don't even know how to explain
what
they did to us, so how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're carrying stuff around
it just
with
becomes
us.
a part of you.
It's almost a part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we do is we want people to have healthy lifestyles. So you got to put down the work, right? You got to put down the work. You have to find those good things. You have to find those places of peace. You have to find those happy things. Sometimes it is just doing some puzzles, right?
Yeah.
The Sudoku, right? Or maybe it is doing a word puzzle. For me, with right now, my daughter and I, we have daddy-daughter dance battles, right? Or we have daddy-daughter rap battles, right?
Yeah.
We do something at the end of the week. We just get the week off, all of the work and all of the school is just let's get going to the weekend and have some fun.
Yeah.
And I think too often now, and I think what you're saying, Mr. Grant, was how society does this is that we're too often functionally staying on the rat wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we do not say, you know what? I'm checking out. I'm going to go over here and relax.
Just let all that go.
Yeah. Because it's still going to be here.
Right. That's absolutely true.
One of my adult fears is that meme that says, remember that the day after you die, your company will be looking for your replacement.
Exactly.
And before you're buried, they'll probably be replaced. Right. So
Yeah.
that means something to say, you know what? If I don't get to that work right now, somebody's going to do it.
Well, let me say this. In my work experience, and I worked for the city for 37 years. The last years were as the budget director in the city, where financial struggles are always the case. And what I always felt was great was that I could compartmentalize. I called it. Same thing you said. When it was over, it was over.
Yeah.
When City Hall was done, because when I went back, that City Hall stuff was going to be there anyway. So I was able to go home. I was able to enjoy a Saints game. I was able to do whatever I liked and not worry about it because it was going to be there when I got back. So
it doesn't magically resolve
That made
itself.
me get through 37 years of work. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, I think that's true. I think if we could talk about that aspect of it, the red flags and what people can do to help heal themselves. So can we start first with some red flag issues?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what do people need to? I know what we're generally saying is if you just feel bad or whatever, but there are some things that are
very
specific, brother. No, that's some specifics.
Yeah. So, some of the specific things, and what we talk about is, listen, everyone feels sad sometimes or anxious about, speaking.
It's a new job starting. I'm going on a date with someone new.
Exactly.
Right.
Those things, for many people, are just normal, and we don't want to pathologize those things. Pathologize means say it's a disorder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way you can kind of know that you are starting to have a problem is if you start to not be able to cope anymore. Right. So you will see problems with relationships or friends. If you see drastic changes in work or school for kids, because I know sometimes parents need to figure out with their kids, if you see a dramatic drop in grades all of a sudden, that's a huge red flag.
Wow.
That something's wrong, that maybe you don't even know about. Bullying, God forbid abuse, those are big red flags. Sleep problems. So if you start sleeping way, way more or way, way less than normal without a medical reason. When I say medical, there's certain
some physical thing
things.
that happens. Yeah.
Right. Changes in appetite is actually a huge red flag. If you had a normal, healthy appetite and you start binge eating or feeling like you don't want to eat at all, again, with no medical cause, those are also red flags. Now this tends to be, it's probably gone a couple steps ahead, but if you find yourself unable to express emotion or feel emotion, and that's not normal for you, that should be a big red flag. In terms of, so that's more the sort of anxiety, depression pieces. In terms of young children, and your pediatricians are all over this, but like significant delays in developmental trajectories or ranges. So like you should walk around this time, like, a couple months before, a few months after. Yeah. But if you're way out of whack, children not talking by 2, then we start to, even 1.5, then we start to really get concerned. Side note, and I'm sure Dr. Filko shared this, but the earlier you get intervention for
Yes.
developmental
Yeah.
disabilities, the
Mhm.
the better the outcomes. Like we're talking, maybe a child wouldn't have been able to speak and can. Dr.
Well, you
Turner?
can say
Yeah.
that for most disorders, right?
Right.
And one of the things I kind of say in a little quip is that we know most people are going to have their personality, whatever that might be.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so broadly, I think as a clinician, what I would want someone to think about is, when are you not being the you that you normally are?
Right.
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 And broadly, right. So yeah. So look, it's the end of the semester. I might eat a little bit extra because I'm stressed. I'm trying to get grades out. I want to make sure students graduate. I've been staying up a little more. I went to the gym early today because I knew I wasn't going to have time later. So I might have ate a little bit more, right? That's not it. We're talking about when you're sitting down and you're eating excessive amounts, and it's unhealthy and it's not within your normal thing, right? Because one of the things that we even kind of play with is the notion of what is normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What is
That's a
really
good point.
normal for an individual? So you think about that, like, what is your kind of regular routine of how you live and how you are and how you operate? How do you interact with your spouse and your partner, right? If you are usually loving and caring and touching and feeling, and now all of a sudden you won't be bothered, you don't want to talk, then you might want to say, what's got me like this? Like, is there something really with my partner going on? Or maybe it's my boss just making me mad and I can't cuss my boss out. So when I get home, I'm being a little short with my partner, right?
Yeah.
With your kids, right? Like Dr. Grant's saying, like when we look at kids, for one, oftentimes kids are going to have more physical complaints, right? So kids are going to complain about the headache and the stomach ache, and just being tired, and I just want to go.
Yeah.
And you know, depending on how the kid is, maybe they're just trying to get out of school.
Yeah.
But if that's not your child's normal and you find that's happening more often, right? Those are usually signifiers to other stuff going on. But I like to tell people, let's look at who you normally have been for the last 6 months, the last year, all your life. And if now you're seeing significant shifts in terms of who you normally are and how you operate and your emotionality, your feelings, and how you think, right? If you're not thinking clearly, right? I joke a lot of times about myself because I think we all do it, right? You get up, you go in the kitchen, and what do? Now, what did I come in here for? Man.
Especially when you get old like I am.
Well, but wait, here's the thing.
I understand.
If you were working in another room and you got thirsty, you're still thinking about work, but something's saying you're thirsty, so you get up and you're still thinking about work. So by the time you get to the kitchen, you're still thinking about work. And you're like, I know I wanted something, but I'm still thinking about that thing I was working on. So what do? You go back, you sit down, and you go to reach for the cup and say, I meant to get something to drink, right?
Yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah.
But if you're getting to the point where you're forgetting appointments, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're not able to follow through on things that you know you're supposed to do, right? If you forget the kids because you didn't go pick them up, right? What's going on that has you so distracted and so off track? Those are early signs. Those are times that you need to do I'll say a checkup from the neck up, right? Check up and say, okay, what's got me so all over the place that maybe I need to attend to this, right? Because at that point in time, and one of the things, unfortunately, we know is that most people who seek therapy are not going to see their clinician for more than 3 sessions, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Right? People are not necessarily going to stay long-term, which is okay. Because here's the ironic part. Those first couple sessions usually give people enough of a little bit of a trajectory switch, a little turn that they're like, oh, I see what I've been doing. I'm okay. Yeah. For longer-term clients, that's usually where we start to see some of the deep-rooted, long-term historiological stuff that people have not been dealing with. Because what does the world tell you to do? Just make money, go to work, be happy, and do these things.
Right.
But at some point in time, your mind and your body is going to say, hey, man, we're not okay.
Yeah.
You know, hey, sis, we're not able to connect with this guy because of some trauma in our past. We really like him, but if we don't figure this out, we're going to miss this opportunity, right? Or it's that guy who's like, hey, man, look, I'm so caught up in being this unhealthy man about the life I'm supposed to live that I'm not treating the woman I want to be with the way I should be treating. I'm tied up in this other thing, right?
Yeah.
And then, so those are the things I like to say for me, you know, just sit down sometimes and think, like this is a check up from the neck up. Like, am I being me?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And if I'm not being me, then why not? And if I don't have an answer, then I might need to do some little research with my friends and say, hey man, have I been a little off lately? Do I seem to be being me? And allow people to give that feedback. That's the last thing I say too, is like, you gotta trust the people in your life. Right?
Yeah.
we're in a time and we're in a space right now where I think it's really hard for people to just genuinely trust.
Yeah.
And so what I try to tell people is you don't have to get the 5,000 Facebook limit. Sometimes you just need that 5, maybe 50, maybe 500.
You can really rely on.
But who are the people that you can call upon to give you some truths about you?
Mm-hmm.
My mom used to say all the time, show me your friends and I'll show you you. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I think a lot about the people that I have around me and are they representative of me? Because sometimes when I've not been so healthy, it was my friend. It was off for some dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But when I'm really good, I look at my friends and we're all thriving and living and doing what we're supposed to do. We're taking care of our kids. We're part of the community. We're part of our families. It's hard to not be in a good space with all that going on.
And let's talk quickly about the myths of therapy and the like. I mean, that's where I think the rubber really meets the road, is just what people perceive versus what really is going on and what really can happen for you and what a session really is like.
Yeah. I mean, the first one, and I give credibility to the facts, right? The fact that the APA and the DSM used to list drapetomania as a mental illness is where we got to be honest. Drapetomania is a diagnosis that was given to enslaved individuals when they were attempting to escape, right? And so the apparatus of the mental health community defined persons who were looking to escape the terrors of slavery as mentally ill.
Wow.
Right? So I don't want to disparage the reality. The reality is that, no, we done some jacked up stuff in psychology to people of color, to women, i.e. the diagnosis of hysteria, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The fact that we have used systems to oppress people, and now we want people to trust those systems. So if we're going to start there, let's be honest, right? Now, the reality of it is this. We have long understood that the idea of psychology did not originate with Freud. It originated in Africa. Mm-hmm. The idea of the third eye, the idea of like that other part of us. Even Dr. Naeem Akbar talks about the idea of okra and the idea of the spiritual being within us was really the understanding that there was a psychological aspect of the human that we had to feed. And so we start there so that we can help other people understand that there's a reality of what's going on in you that can be helped. And so that myth that, no, I'm supposed to just be tough, be hard. I just have to work harder.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You got to be human.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first one I'll give. Is like, no, let's dispel the myth that you have to be this unbreakable, soul.
Super strong.
You get to be human.
Yeah.
I think I want to touch back to something you shared before, is the like you said, the fear that admitting that you need help, right, is sort of admitting failure.
Yeah.
When in reality, when you walk into a therapist's office, their whole goal, their whole energy and training is to make you feel better. And so this idea that it's okay to say you need help. The other thing is the idea that everyone's going to know your business. I actually want to state this out loud. So we follow ethical regulations as psychologists, just like medical professionals do, physicians, and it is HIPAA.
Yeah.
And no one can say that that you've been seen. We have to pretend like we don't know you. Actually,
we're going to take another quick break. This is a fascinating conversation. This is the Let's Elevate show, and we'll be right back.
New Orleans never sleeps, and neither does WBOK. Now, every voice, every moment, and every show is in your pocket. Search WBOK Media wherever you get podcasts. Download, share, rate us 5 stars. Because when you support us, you amplify Black voices and the New Orleans culture.
New Orleans, are you ready for a voice that says what you're thinking? Who that, you might ask? Arrington Gavin. That's right, I'm your guy, host of the Arrington Gavin Show. And I'm so excited to announce that I'm coming to WBOK, giving you so much filled with bold opinions, real conversations, and zero sugarcoating. We're going to be diving into the issues that matter, politics, pop culture, and all the above, unfiltered and unafraid. So, starting May 5th, catch the Arrington Gavin Show, weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Fridays, right here on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
Sunday Gospel. I am Leo Jackson asking you to tune in every Sunday, 12 noon till 2 p.m. Feel the power of the Holy Spirit moving. Make you want to clap your hands, shout, cry out, glory, hallelujah. Don't miss this program, Sunday Gospel, 12 noon until 2 p.m. every Sunday. Station you listen to all day long.
Come on, let's have a good time. Oh, come on, let's have a good time.
I'm Grant Sashera.
And I'm Ro Brown.
Please join us for the Sports Report, Wednesdays and Fridays.
At 8 p.m. on WBOK.
The Sports Report. WBOK 1230 AM.
Trying to grow your business or increase traffic to your location? We can help. WBOK 1230 AM has a number of solutions that will meet your individual needs. Give one of our consultants a call today at 504-582-9420 or email us at info@wbok1230.com. And remember, an investment with WBOK is an investment in our community. Call today.
WBOK. Listen now on WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Filko and Cary Grant.
And we are back with the professors and doctors from Xavier University who are dealing with mental health and mental health issues and getting back to some of the things about the actual sessions. But you wanted to talk about access to the services, which I think a lot of our listeners will be interested in.
Yes, so a few places to access care that sometimes folks aren't aware of. If you have health insurance, it is possible that depending on your insurance, you could have very accessible mental health care. So, for example, there could be sessions as low as $25 copays for weekly sessions. So research that. The other thing that I want to highlight for folks is that there are options. So telehealth became popular during COVID. That means seeing someone via Zoom, via the computer or your phone. And I really want to highlight that if folks are feeling stigma, you don't want to go, or maybe your mental health is so bad it's hard to leave the house.
Yeah.
Telehealth is a real option for you, and I hope that people access. A couple of things regarding low-cost services, because I know that's a huge barrier.
Yes.
They had a recent Greater New Orleans healthcare landscape survey in 2024, and health costs was one of the highest why people didn't access mental health care. I want to talk about the Open Path Collective. So it's openpathcollective.org. And this is psychologists and other mental health professionals like licensed social workers who actually ethically have a belief that we should offer low cost. So they have full cost services that they offer to some clients, maybe insurance clients.
Yeah.
And they will offer sliding scale as low as $30 to $70 a session, which for therapy is quite low.
Yeah.
And so even without insurance. And so seeking that and trying to find that. Metropolitan Human Services District is a huge point of access. And Catholic Charities is actually another huge point of access. And I'll defer to Dr. Turner if he's aware of any additional.
I'll go back to it, what you said, Dr. Grant, is that first and foremost, whatever insurance you have, whether it be private health insurance through your employer, Medicaid, Medicare for yourself or your kids, those are first line because, one, it's going to definitively cut the cost, right? And I can have to say my practice is that I will ask people to pay my initial intake fee, which you got to call me for that. But after that, if you discuss with me your financial situation, I will negotiate a sliding scale fee that we will determine you'll pay every session, based upon the fact that I'm not in my therapeutic practice to become a millionaire. I really do look at it as what I've learned, I've trained, and I don't mind doing it because I do give back a certain percentage of my time and finances to different causes. But I will definitely say to anybody that if you're in need of services, reach out. You can reach out to me at drturner504@gmail.com. If I can't help you, I'll work with you to get you. My phone number also is 504-292-9862. I think, once again, I'm actually on the board of Metropolitan Human Services. It oversees the mental health apparatus for the city of New Orleans Parish, and it's connected through the state's networks. But they have multiple sites throughout the city, very much in the means of providing care. So be aware that it starts with your insurance if possible. And then if you don't have that type of care, then you can reach out. And there's always some type of option that you can get connected with to possibly get services. Yes, sir, Brother Grant?
Yeah, I think we have a caller on the line. I'm going to patch them in. Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Yeah, all right.
Good afternoon to your guests. Hey, so I'm a LPC, state of Louisiana, and I've been so for like 18 years.
Okay.
And so, and I'm enjoying the conversation because it's stuff that I basically deal with every day. And one of the things that I add to my clients who are reluctant to enter into therapy, I get them to relate therapy with healing.
Yes.
And that way it's more acceptable when they think healing instead of the C word. So clinically speaking, nobody is crazy. Crazy is not in the DSM.
Yeah.
So, but there are crazy people in the world, but clinically speaking, none of my clients are crazy.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that I want to put out there is that people define themselves as the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm schizophrenic. I'm bipolar.
Yeah.
And I have to correct them and say, I have schizophrenia. I have the symptoms of bipolar, but I am not the disorder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, brother, he makes a good point. I didn't get to hear his name, but he makes a good point about the historical kind of aspect of a diagnosis. And some of it is very much rooted in culture, right? Is that many persons will adopt that identifier because in some ways they want to try to empower themselves, right? But just
just go ahead.
So when you think about it, it is a shift that we're trying to make, that we ask people to consider themselves. I am Brian Turner and I have depression. I am Brian Turner and I suffer with, or I am diagnosed with bipolar disorder, right? Because the idea is that treatment will help a person take control of the diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Rand said this earlier, and it is one of the hallmarks of any type of actual intervention, whether it be medical, psychological, or whatever. The earlier that we get to intervene, the better off we are, because we get to deal with things before they have taken a course of becoming more degenerative to the individual, right? And so when we think about it, especially some of the more pervasive early developmental things, right?
Yeah.
When children are not able to get the resources early on, and definitely, when we think about what happens when they get to college, you'd asked off air about COVID. And one of the things that we realize, honestly, the data kind of points is that most young people are still very resilient, right?
Yeah.
And that we don't necessarily see these huge debilitating impacts on young people because they're still growing. But what we do tend to see is that persons who have social determinants of health that are already negative, right?
Yeah.
A high poverty background, right? Persons who have family history of psychological disorders, persons who are already struggling with psychological disorders, persons who are having other resource issues. That's when, once again, it's the kind of ideal of everybody's under distress, right?
Right.
And so we once again want to talk about just from the healthy standpoint, right? Taking care of yourself, having regular check-ins with people who care about you and that can give you that feedback. Also taking care of self, right?
Yeah.
I love when clients are able to talk about the positive and good things they do. So we want people to build on what they do as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Grant, and thank you, Dr. Barnes. This has been Dr. Turner. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about somebody else. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting conversation, and I'm really proud to know that you guys are working here at Xavier and helping the community out as well. And that shows, again, as we say on the show a lot, the resources we have, the people here who are doing the work. This city has a lot of great, vital things going on that are very helpful. And I hope this is very helpful to people. And thank you for the caller. And he had some great insight as well. We'll be back tomorrow night. Arnie and I should be back tomorrow night. And we'll see you then.
Make sure y'all go out and vote. Voting is still happening.